Welcome back. I've picked a new project to start, and I think it's one that's going to be challenging to me and fun for the users. But first, let me catch you up on what I've been doing since my last video, which was more time ago than I would like it to be. I've released an app that I'm pretty proud of. I created My Life to make it easier for you to remember the important things in your life and hold on to the other small moments that you might have forgotten. I did my best to make it quick and easy for you to add those memories by using app intents that can be tied into shortcuts on your phone that put adding memories to My Life right at your fingertips. I also created a blog on my personal site that's pretty simple. It's just a headless CMS with a couple React pages in my portfolio app, but it does what I want it to do, and I've got a few more ideas to make some improvements to it. But now it's time to start talking about my new project. It's a 2-player number game. Let me show you how it works. It's a pretty simple game. Like I said, it's a 2-player number game. So player 1 picks a number, let's say they pick 1, and player 2 picks a number, they pick 5. Now to see who wins this round, you look for the smallest number, which is 1 in this case, and that means player 1 wins and they get 1 point. If they had picked 2 in this instance, they get 2 points. You get the number of points of the smallest number. Each player gets the numbers 1 through 10, so there'll be 10 rounds for the game, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game is your winner. I did have to throw in one sneaky little change here though. To make it more interesting, I made it so opposites reverse the scoring. So if player 2 picked 10 and player 1 pick the number 1, since these are opposites, the smallest number and the biggest number, the player that picked the largest number gets those points. So it just kind of adds a little bit of strategy to the game, and that goes true for 9 to 2 and 8 to 3 and so on down. But yeah, it's a pretty simple game, but I think one that could be pretty fun. I've actually already started on the API because I'm obviously going to need one, because the 2 players will be playing the game on 2 different devices. So the gameplay logic and data will all need to live on a central server. So I created a Next.js project with a DB and Supabase. I started with the data model and obviously knew I needed to have games and rounds to store the scoring and the game results for those users. I quickly realized I'd also need a players object when I started creating the create and retrieve endpoints for games and rounds. And after a few days of work, I ran into my first real hiccup and problem that I really needed to figure out. I wasn't sure how users were going to find other users to play with and then create the game for them to play. I came up with a queue and matching system. So a player will join the queue, then after they join the queue, it will attempt to find more players that are already in the queue, and if it finds 2 or more, it will select the oldest players in the queue and start a game with those 2 players. I ran into a common theme while I was working on this API that I really had to stop and think about how the game was going to flow and how the data would flow together. So how does a user go from looking for another player to starting a game to submitting their score or submitting their numbers for a round, and then to ultimately finding out if they won the round and on to if they won the game? And once I figured it out from the user's perspective, I had to kind of twist that into how the API was going to behave to allow for the user to interact with that data to get what they needed back to the UI. And finally, I got to move on to the exciting part of the project, which ended up being pretty anticlimactic because it's just this if else for if it's the opposite scenario, then the big number wins, and else then the lower point wins. And if they're the same, then it's a tie. This project wasn't complicated until I had to build up the structure for allowing for the users to submit a round to be scored by this very simple algorithm. I do want to do a quick run through here of some of the endpoints that I've made, and this is I'm using serverless functions in Vercel for this, so that's kind of how I have the project set up. So each one of these JavaScript files ends up being a serverless function hosted in Vercel. So that's kind of how this whole project works out. And I've got games that you can fetch and create here. That's here. And if you're familiar, the file structure is really what lays out the URLs for the endpoints. So this will be at API/games is what games.js will be. And this is games/an ID to fetch a specific game data. But let me get back to the general idea. So I have game endpoints, round endpoints, an endpoint for joining a queue. Oh, that would be this one. And this is for checking your status in the queue so you know when a game has started. This will return the game ID once you're in a game, so the user will know to go fetch the game data to start their game. And then this matchmaker is what's used to create the game once it finds two players in the queue. I won't really step through all this code because it's pretty basic CRUD operations, with the exception of the round processing, which I already showed you. This one is probably the most complicated because it has to handle if both players have submitted to the round, then it has to go update the game with the round winner and an update to that player's scores. So this one got a little bit messy, but it does what I want it to do, so I can live with that for now. But yeah, that's just like a quick run through of what the endpoints are for my app so far. But at this point, I think I have a full API that can process an entire game, from creating the game and rounds to finding users to pair together to create that game, and then processing the rounds and determining the winner. Now it's time to move on to the UI, or should I say UIs, because I plan on creating both a web version and an iOS version of this. I think I'm actually going to start with the web version for, I think, no real reason. I'm kind of telling myself it's more widely available, but I think I just kind of want to do it first for whatever reason. Well, anyway, let me know what you think of the new project. If you have any suggestions for it, let me know in the comments. And otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.